Bright Cutie. Every student matters.
Hello children, welcome to the session. In this session children, we are going to discuss a few question and answers from the topics that we have covered so far. So let's begin with the first question. The question is, give examples from daily life where you can observe the separation of substances. So children, this chapter is based upon your daily life. You can observe these things around you if you're aware about your surroundings. So let us quickly begin and find out some of the examples where we observe separation of substances. So the first example that might come to your mind is separation of liquid tea from tea leaves, right? You might have seen at your houses, whenever the tea is made, the liquid tea is separated into a cup for consumption and the tea leaves are separated using a strainer, right? Or we can also call this process as filtration. Why? Because we are filtering it, right? Okay, so we are removing the tea leaves from the liquid tea. Also, which other examples can be there? The example can be separation of butter from curd, right? This is another example where you can see the butter being separated from the curd. Then what else can be the example for separation of the substances? You can observe your mothers or grandmothers separating stones or pieces of pebbles, stones or some other impurities that might be there in pulses or rice. So before cooking rice or pulses, what do? They clean it, right? By hand picking it, by removing each and every particle of impurity by their hands, right? So these are just a few examples from your daily life where you can observe the separation of substances. And children, you need not cram anything, you need not remember these examples, you can write your own examples, okay? So let's move to the next question. So children, why do we need to separate substances? Children, we need to separate substances. First of all, we need it for to remove the impurities, okay, or to remove the harmful components. Second, to remove non-useful components, and finally it can also be used to separate two different but useful components. Can you help me children by giving one example for each of them? For example, if we are removing impurities or harmful substances or components, the example can be cleaning of rice or pulses, right? We are removing the impurities like pebbles, stones, or maybe there which can be removed easily. So these are the harmful substances which can be easily removed, okay? Then by removing non-useful components, and here we can use the example of tea being separated from tea leaves, right? Tea being separated from tea leaves, okay children? So tea leaves are useless for us because we cannot consume the tea leaves, right? So only liquid tea is important for us. So what we are doing here, we are removing the non-useful component, okay? Now children, the third point is to separate two different but useful components. Now we are separating two components, but both of these components are useful to us. How? Give me an example. The example can be the separation of butter from curd. So whenever we separate butter from curd, children, we obtain buttermilk, which is left over. And butter is again useful. So you can see buttermilk and butter both are useful components. Next question is, what is winnowing? Where is it used? So children, winnowing is the process wherein we use the property of difference in the densities, difference in densities of the substances that we need to separate, okay? Suppose we have a mixture of grains, and we all know with grains there are also husks which are present there. So how do we go about winnowing and separating them? We use a tray which we commonly call this tray as soup, and we add the mixture of grain and husk into this, and we will stand on a raised platform, and behind this platform will be a table fan, and we will tilt this tray a little bit so that the mixture is sliding through the tray. And when the mixture is sliding slowly through the tray, the lighter husk particles will move along with the speed of wind and in the direction of the wind, whereas the heavy grain particles will be collected in a heap like structure. A heap of grains will be formed. So children, this method is known as winnowing, and it is used to separate such substances which have greater difference in their densities, and we can make use of high speed wind. Okay, let's move to the next question. How can you separate husk from pulses? We can separate husk by using the method of winnowing, right? We can do this by winnowing. Let's move to the next question. How can you separate a mixture of sugar from flour? So children, we have flour and sugar mixture, and we know flour is finely powdered. Flour is finely powdered. Sugar particles are bit larger, as you can compare it with the flour particles. So how we can separate it? Can we do hand picking? No, we cannot do hand picking. Why? Because sugar particles will be so large in number. It will be such a tedious process and we won't be able to do it, right? So, can we do threshing? No, definitely not. We cannot beat it. If we are going to beat this mixture, the sugar will be powdered and flour and sugar will get mixed. So, which is the process? Can we do winnowing? No, children, we cannot do winnowing also. So, we will have to do sieving. We will have to use a sieve and sieve. The sugar particles are being larger. Sugar particles being larger will be left behind in the sieve, whereas the fine flour will be passed through the sieve, and we can separate a mixture of flour and sieve by using flour and sugar by sieving. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Which method of separation is used to separate seeds or grains from the stalk? So children, how we can separate seeds or grains from the stalk? We can do this by the help of threshing, the method which we have discussed, which was threshing. Okay children, the method was threshing. In this, what we do, we beat the stalk so that the grains are free and they can be separated easily, and sometimes we use bullocks. Bullocks are made to run over these stalks, and it is similar to beating, and the grains will be separated. But nowadays children, machines are also there to separate grains from the stalk. Okay.